Hello, everyone. Women 360. It's Nancy and Cathy. And today we are going to have a conversation with a gal who knows so much about real estate. We couldn't help but bring it to you because it's great information to have, especially in this market. Angela Totman helps families and investors confidently navigate the process of buying and selling real estate. She's a licensed realtor and also financial education and accountability expert. Yay. And is able to apply her knowledge and all of her experience as a trusted source for real estate industry, which is good.
Which is good. And she has spent 30 years right here in the Valley with her family, has chosen to raise her children here. And I'm going to actually read what she is involved in. She is a volunteer, leader, and board member for the local Cub Scout, Boy Scout organization and after school youth educational programs, school sports. She pretty much does everything with her kids and the community.
She loves Arizona, and you can find her at azhomeswithangela.com. So welcome, Angela. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Cathy and Nancy. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today.
Well, real estate is certainly a big topic these days with the market, whether you're trying to refinance or purchase or whatever, invest, whatever you're doing. So we thought it would be good to just bring some current information from someone who knows and educate the folks in our group about what they can be thinking and looking toward doing. So start us off and tell us a little bit about what the market's doing right now.
Well, I think a lot of people were hoping that there'd be a little bit of some ease to what was happening in the market, during the holidays and whatnot, and going into this year, maybe find a little bit of relief. But it remains hot. Inventory has declined, home values continue to go up. And so, I think what we're seeing is more of what we've been seeing. And, that really is why it's very important to, and we were chatting about this a little bit before we started, is have trusted resources in the profession and in the industry that you can go to that you really can rely on.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're searching for a home to buy, you really want the person that is going to do the research, go to work for you, negotiate, advise you strategically. And it's hugely important now more than ever, I would think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And even though I'll mention rates a little bit here since I'm in the mortgage industry, but they have been creeping up and they are expected to creep up more this year. That's the prediction. But I do want to remind people that even though they're going up, it's still historically very low. I mean, even a 4% loan, back in the day, there were, even double digits. When I got out of college, real estate or mortgage rates were double digits, which is hard to imagine. But, sevens and eights were not uncommon. So 4 is still considered a great rate. It's just that we all like the 2s and the 3s when they were here better.
Sure. And I think that when you buy a home or you invest in real estate, it can be very emotional. And, really, the good news is that we're dealing with numbers, and numbers are numbers. And so they give you a sure answer. And, by talking with knowledgeable people like yourself when it comes to mortgage, and working with real estate agents that can help you understand and maybe put together a good strategy for securing a home. Numbers are numbers. So you really can get to a point that allows you to remove maybe a little bit of that emotion out of it. And I think that that's the thing that's most important. Is I really want clients that I work with to feel confident that they're making a decision that's right for them. It's not my place to make that decision for them, but if I can help them see and navigate the information that's in front of them so they feel like they're informed and can be confident in their decision making, I feel like I've done my job.
Absolutely. And and I know the caliber of work you do, so I can imagine that if I were a new home buyer and I came to you and said, gosh, it's going to be kind of rough out there, but what can I do strategically to give myself the best shot, what would you tell them?
I think that's a great question. Number one is just being educated as to what resources you have available. And so exploring your options for financing, understanding that it is a very competitive market. And so as a buyer, what you want to do is you want to be able to set yourself up and position yourself to be able to compete while still making the best decision financially for yourself. And so that really starts with understanding what is the right price range for you, what can you qualify for. Going into the home buying process without any sort of pre-qualification is basically setting yourself up for disappointment. In Asia, that's the first thing they're going to ask you for is, do you have a pre-qualification letter if you're using financing? And so that's the first step, is make sure that you understand what you financially are comfortable with and can handle. And then you know what your options are. And so you know what price point you can look for. You know if you can offer over list price, which that's happening so much now. You know, a lot of homes we're still seeing in a lot of areas of the valley, they're going for significantly over list price. And so that's really from the buyer's perspective, what you want to be thinking about is how can I position myself to compete while still making the right financial decision for myself?
Absolutely. Well, and the good news about if they get with someone who can really advise them on the financing piece of it, it helps you because maybe there are options that some folks don't know about that are out there that could make the difference. And I know even like with some of the loans that are coming back around after COVID, we have programs now, both for buyers and investors, that you don't even show income documents and tax returns. You know, they are out there and they're fully legal and great. And, you know, approved mortgages, but they're just an alternative way of doing things. So for folks that think, oh, I just have to come in with this much down and that's my only option and make the same payment for 30 years, there really are all kinds of programs now. So that makes it someone like yourself who would know to make sure that they've got all the information they have, gives them the best shot at making it work for their situation.
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of people feel like a real estate agent is just involved in that process of contract writing. But, you know, one of the things that I've been able to do to provide additional value for clients is refer them to people who they might be like, whether it's a lender or whether it's a handyman or, you know, a home warranty company or, you know, whatever it is. People who are in the industry, they can be that resource for you. And so it's not just about the contract writing, the offer process, those are very important, but that's where really being that resource, that trusted resource comes into play, is being able to offer information outside just the scope of writing contracts.
Oh, absolutely. And someone like yourself who makes themselves really aware of all those things and is prepared, you know, it's a relationship all the way around because now they're not just counting on you for one thing. They know that you're going to make sure they get through the whole process and you'll have the right people for them because it can be scary. It's a lot to deal with, especially a first time home buyer. They aren't really quite sure how to navigate all of that. And having someone like you they can count on, that's huge.
Can
Well,
I
and
say
it's
one thing?
interesting.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Cathy.
On this subject, because I have a daughter that is pre-approved, but it's a VA loan, and she winds up not getting every home she goes into because she's not adding money to it, etc. There's some mental stress I'm seeing between her and her friends who are losing out on certain opportunities. How do you deal? Is that also part of both your jobs when you're speaking to a client?
Absolutely. So, you know, if she were my client as her agent, you know, part of what I would want to do is help understand and help her set expectations in a competitive market anyway. What I try to do is knowing that there is a limited there's limited inventory right now, and we're competing first-time home buyers, depending on what our price point is, there's a lot of competition. And so knowing that we're not probably going to get the first home that we make an offer on, you know, setting the expectation, helping them understand that this is going to be a process. It's probably not going to be a one and done. And then also there's this phrase that a colleague of I use, it's on to the next, meaning there is another home out there. There will be another home. And so keeping the financial objectives in mind, and a home is an emotional experience, but if we can manage expectations and manage those emotions, it does make the process a little bit easier.
That's a
Thank
good
you.
point. That's,
You too, Nancy, you feel the same way? I mean,
Yeah.
just qualifying someone sometimes
Sometimes you just
scary.
need that little edge too. I've had clients where, and I'm sure you have too, where they reach out and they want to just know from, in my case, the lender, a little bit more about that particular person because they've come down to where it's two people they're trying to decide who they want to go with for the offer. And sometimes it's that extra letter or phone call saying, you know, we've really researched this person,
Yeah.
and as have you, and you know, they're really going to be a great purchaser for your home, a great buyer. They'll take care of it. Some people want to know the house will be lovingly cared for when they leave. There are just different things that motivate them to choose a buyer. So it's having all those people on board that are willing to do that, because that one thing can make the difference.
Well, and understanding the seller too. I mean, that's part of it. So if as a buyer's agent, I can understand what's most important to the seller. If it's an investor, and I know that what's most important to the seller is what their return is going to be, then maybe the story of the buyer isn't as important to that seller. But if I am approaching on behalf of a buyer of an agent that is working with a seller that's lived in that home for a long time, raised their family, it's important to them, they have strong family values, to know that it will be cared for and a family will enjoy that, then I might recommend to my buyer, you know what, let's tell them a little about you. I'm sure that people who are listening to this interview right now, we've all received those mailers in the mail where it's got a picture of somebody. It says, this is so-and-so, and they love your neighborhood and have 3 kids and their dog loves to hike and you're right on the preserve. So creating that personal understanding where it's an added value or an asset to create the personal connection or somehow facilitate that between the buyer and the seller is one strategy that buyers can utilize where it's appropriate.
Yeah, it can make all the difference. I mean, it really can. It can be the difference, or even just endorsing the fact that they are such a good credit risk and they are, a worthy, buyer financially. Sometimes that makes a difference because nobody wants to go through all that, get halfway down, and then the loan doesn't go through and then they have to start all over. So they want to know that it's a good buyer in many ways. And you're right. That's the story. You kind of have to know the whole story. It takes a little more work these days.
It does, and some sellers, the most important thing is that they get to stay in the house for 60 days because they haven't identified their new home yet. So they might, they might accept an offer that isn't as high as another one, but the higher offer didn't include that post-possession timeframe. So it's just like anything else. Understanding your audience is so important. And right now, if you're a buyer, your audience is the seller.
That is true. And that's why they want somebody, like you with the experience who will dig deep and do all the details because it's going to be relationship based and you have to be creative almost. So yeah, I think that's probably huge. Do you have any questions?
I always have questions. That's for sure. No, I appreciate it. That was a very good answer. And the frustrations are there, but I want to keep her spirits up. She keeps on, oh, somebody's going to come in with cash and more. I go, relax.
Well, I will say it does happen a lot with the cash thing too. But for instance, we just bought a second home and it took 10 offers before we got the one that we have. 10 offers. And that's with us being, in the industry, strong standing, everything, but we weren't coming in with cash. So it can be done. You do have to be patient. And we just figured the same thing as you, on to the next. Okay, we'll find another one, make an offer on that. And if you can prepare yourself mentally for that, it probably will happen. But it's not going to be like the days where the first one you find, you buy and walk away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Angela, there's more work on the realtor's part than when people are putting in bids. What would you say it takes you when someone says, yes, let's put in an offer? How much paperwork is involved and how much time goes into it? And then maybe they don't get it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So even before we get to the offer writing process, I've already reached out to the seller's agent. So I'm looking to, again, try to gather as much information I can on behalf of the buyer. Understand some of the things that we've already talked about. What's most important to the seller? I see that there's a desired post-possession period. Can you tell me, is there anything that is helpful to know that I can share with the buyer to position them for, with a competitive offer? Good sellers agents, they're not going to say, oh yeah, these are all the offers that I have on the table. They're going to say, bring us your highest and best. But sellers are acting on behalf, or seller agents are acting on behalf of the sellers with the idea to get them the most bang for their buck too. And so they have a vested interest in doing great work for their client. And so however you can facilitate that, that's where the relationship building and being able to, just communicate really effectively is helpful. So even before you get to the offer writing process, I will have reached out to the seller's agent just to understand the situation a little bit more and find out how we can make it easy for the seller to say yes, really.
Yeah, and then
you have the offer process. And then if the offer gets accepted right away. Obviously, that's less paperwork than if they counter or, but
Right.
you know, in Arizona, you know, in the real estate industry in general, there are a lot of required forms and whatnot. So that's again part of the expectation that you set in the beginning as a real estate agent is, you know, here's what the process looks like. That's how you are able to help buyers and sellers build that confidence, is by educating them on the process of what it's going to look like to buy or sell a home.
Yeah, you're basically going to be a coach for them,
Right.
besides everything else. Yeah. Just
Yeah,
to make sure they're in the
absolutely.
best light possible. But I mean, it's a crazy market. And I mean, I think we're going to see it continue for a while. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, there's at this point, I think, like I said, everybody thought that in the winter months things would slow down and home prices would come down a little bit, but you know, really what we saw is inventory came down. And so what drives the cost of homes? You know, everybody, you read these articles and they say, you know, 30% increase in home value. Can you imagine anything else increasing in price?
Yeah.
30% over such a short period of time? And it is hard to imagine, but this is economics, and we're dealing with supply and demand. And that's what this boils down to, is there's, you know, low supply right now and a lot of demand.
Yep, that's really true. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's great in some ways and not as great in others, but it is what it is. And I think it will continue for a while. So for folks that think they want to go out and buy a home or their first home, they really need to do their research and find out that they are working with someone who will give them the full package, coach them, strategize for them, let them know, that I'll go to the bat for you because you're going to have to.
Yeah, it's not just about the transaction of the buyer, the sell. It's about the process. And, you know, if you went to any other type of service, you would want to feel like you could trust the person on the other side of the table. And, you know, at least for me personally, that's very important to me. One of the best testimonials I ever got was that, you know, that they felt like they just could trust me in every step of the process. And so that's how I knew that I was doing the job that I wanted to, and that's how you help to take some of the uncertainty and emotion out of it too.
I agree. That's really important. And they need to trust pretty much everybody involved in the whole thing, because it's going to be multifaceted, and, it's going to take that kind of relationship, especially now. But I think it's great that, you're able to do all that and still keep going, because it's going to be wild for a while. But do you have anything else to add for us that we should know?
I just think, don't get frustrated. Just understand the game. I think that that's the biggest thing. Back in the days when I did business coaching, we talked about that all the time. I think no matter what it is that you're doing, whatever your objective is, you have to understand the game. And if you understand the game, you understand the rules that everybody is playing by, and you understand how you can position yourself for the greatest success. Those are the three key pieces that will allow you to get results faster.
True. And I think the silver lining on top of all of it is, when you do finally buy a house, then you'll be one of those lucky people that is going up 30%, and you'll have that to look forward to, because, right now it's happening for a while. So if they can make that work, then it's a win-win.
Yep, absolutely.
I think so. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and being able to shed some light on that subject, because I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are frustrated or wondering or just don't know and afraid to jump in. So we want to make sure that they understand that it can still be done. So tell us again how they find you.
You can find me at azhomeswithangela.com, or just reach out to me by phone, 602-999-7018.
All right, perfect. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angela.
And good luck, everybody. Get out there and look for your new home.
That's right. And call Angela.
That's right. Thank you both so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.